Bruchim Abayim, thank you for joining us again this year. I know seemingly it's not straight up the alley of Taharas Hamishpacha, but it reaches the heart of really our avoida alei adamis. Chinuch is a subject that I would venture to say, if not the most important topic, should be on our mind. Tremendous amount. This is our shlichus in our life, and Chinuch is one investment, if I could say this, that whatever you invest will pay back with dividends for yaron shpeter any area in Chinuch. Okay, whether it's time you spend with your child, time you spend with your rebbetzin discussing and thinking, planning the Chinuch of the home, how we do things in the home, time you spend with the teacher, time you spend with homework, any area in Chinuch will pay back with dividends, will pay back kiflaim l'tashia, bekifle kiflaim. So definitely the time we're going to spend together is, in addition to refresh, is going to fill our chiyuv of a half an hour. Mit a shmitza riber, it's going to be a lot of food for thought. And I want to say being thoughtful bichlal is a yesod in chinuch. We can't really, you can't beat yourself up over every movement. It's a scary, chinuch is a very scary field. You say this, you say that, the child understands it this way, that way, and today, children and adults as well are much more sensitive, and therefore it's very complicated to live on eggshells, and it's not practical, it's not natural, it won't work. Children and the Sivan wants to flow with what's gesund, with what comes across as oisher, as a glicklicha life, and living on eggshells doesn't contribute to that style, and therefore a lot of the avoid of chinuch and what we're going to discuss now is much more in the mind. The more we plan, we put in thought in how we envision our home to be, how we want to be perceived, how our chinuch, how we envision it, that's how it's going to play out in time of need. To live on eggshells is not practical. But to invest the time noticing, planning, how do we want our children to do this, that, and the other, as we'll bring examples, those thoughts, they'll play out naturally when it comes the time, if you put in the prep time, if you put in the thinking time. And that's what the Rebbe wants of us, to put in time of chinuch. So I'll begin by saying there's also no guarantees for chinuch. The children today are growing up in a world where the exposure is enormous. A child on one, I tell this to parents, a child on one bus ride from their house to school, to Cheder, they can see accumulated what a person in the shtetl would need to take in 10 years, 15 years. And I'm not even talking about schmutz. Even violence and mudna things and ideas that are just the gas right. And as much as we want to be insular, and every parent, it's their achrayus also to create that tevas noyach in their home, that warm environment, that richtige perspective, we're up against a tremendous amount. And therefore, there's no guarantees. But a thought that comes to mind, just in response to that, is, I remember as a bacher, we were sitting once, we were doing a faher on a big sugya. I don't remember, it was a whole Masechta Shabbos, I don't remember, it was a big faher. So there's some bachrim sitting they're sitting at the end of the test, and it's quiet, and it's quiet, and it's quiet. And at some point the Magachir was thinking, they pushed in Chazer, they're just sitting and waiting. So he said, Elyon Navi is Nizgala, and he gives answers, but only to those that chazed. You understand? He'll come and be Nizgala to those that chazed. So the same thing applies to chinuch. We can only rely on siyata d'shmaya, who our children. There's a lot that we could contribute to who our children's friends are going to be, but we don't micromanage. And verkehrt, it's nicht gesund. There's many letters of the Rebbe that don't choke Rahman al-Islan, a child, and etc. Together with that, I think the siyata d'shmaya comes to those that invest the time in Palas Reglecha, in Taka, thinking through how we do things, how we're investing in our child, and putting in that time. then the siyata d'shmaya, like we said, El Yonavi comes to those that prepared. So, so we're going to take a few areas in chinuch, and really, there's pen, there's paper. We're going to go through a lot, and it doesn't matter at what point you are in life. And there are newlyweds, and there are people that you could be married 20 year, 30 year, and you could have all your children married, and still the chinuch, the impact that you have on your son-in-laws and daughter-in-laws, it's chinuch. I'm not even talking about the Friedrich Rebbe when he describes klal chinuch b'adracha. Most of the chinuch is klape atzmai, by you being who you are. So it's always a continuous avodah. But so. Just discussing for a second at what point chinuch starts. So there was once a couple, as Zachman came into the moment to decide what we attribute importance to, where we invest our time in, what we invest our energy in. It's every moment is a chinuch moment, bekitzer. And asher lochein, there's never too early, never too late. So firstly, I'll begin by saying that if there's so much husk, so much klippa in the world, there's so many opportunities today for kedusha. And the only difference is that once upon a time you were able to fall back to a great degree on the shtetl, the avra of the shtetl. They go to shul to daven, they have chaverim, they have... today, that's one thing. Another thing is, there's common sense, aleph verstehen, everything. Today, everything has to be spelled out and spoken. Everything has to be addressed. But wisely, it's like acrobatics. Okay? You can't tell a child what to do. The lie there. And the fact that there are rights, a child has rights, is a real thing. It's a real thing without children being able to verbalize it. It's a reality. And the Rebbe even addresses this. The Rebbe addresses this as one of the reasons why the Rebbe was miyaset tzivas Hashem, where the Rebbe said, worked long and hard, it's a letter in English, to find a model in where Kabbalah Soil is still celebrated. And the Rebbe said the only institution that it's celebrated, is cherished, is the army. And that's why the Rebbe wanted dafka. A critic, writes to the Rebbe, I think it's a European archaic idea to make a brigade, a tzivas Hashem, an army of Hashem. It should be a club. It should be nice. Everyone together. Army is not from America. And the Rebbe said, and the Rebbe describes in that letter why he chose this model specifically of an army, because it celebrated Kabbalah Soul. But what does it help? The Rebbe says that he basically applies to the army. Either he's drafted, but he joins the ranks. We have to be able to appeal and reach our children and address everything, but not to tell them what to do, rather from the arum. And it's a tremendous avoid, and that's why I'm saying every moment is a chinuch moment, because at the end of the day, a lot is about setting the stage and avoiding issues, but even more than that, displaying our priorities, what's important to you, what you're ready to throw money at, what you're ready to invest in, whether it's a Shabbos, Suda, etc. So, I'll start with our Yom Yom. There's our Yom Yom that says, Achsidische Nigin is Mamed the Bais Bekeren Oira. I think it's about Achsidische Nigin and a story, Achsidische Maisa. And about a Nigin, there's also about Melicha. Which Nigunim are playing in the house? Bechlal, it's the aura, the arum of a house is very, very real. It sounds like it's a makiftika thing, but it's very, very tangible. And which nigunim play in the house on Shabbos, by the Shabbos table, which nigunim do they sing? The more you put in time, do you share Chsiddish Maisa? Do you prepare Bechlal for the Shabbos table? Do you prepare, I'm saying what you're going to be sharing, any idea for, if they know that the Tata shares a Maimah, they learn the Chsiddish Pasha throughout the week, okay? That's one, or even if he prepared, he's a working person and he doesn't have that time. But he made a point. He watched Chveisnish, everybody based on where they're at. He took the time to watch a class on something and he shares. I have a kvias, I go to this shir, or I listen to this shir, and I share, they know where his juice is. Okay? These things take prep, and anything you give attention, like we said, he sees what turns you on. We know our children, they know how to press buttons, right? They know very simply what will mamish get on your nerves. you should know if they're able to do that, Baruch Hashem, they're adept, they're equipped, and they're able to know also l'mal yosem meruba mida taiva. If they know what gets you your nerves, they know what turns you on, and therefore you need to be be'emes sincere. The avodah of chinuch also takes being emistic, stopping and thinking, taka, where, chassid ani ubameh. Where in my life do I display iskashos to the Rebbe? Okay? A very big part of chinuch, which I would like to discuss, is routines. Because routines, they give children Kabbalah soil. There's a seder to things. And it also, it prevents issues. It's not every moment a new question, what are we doing now? There's a seder. So bedtime, for example, there's a routine. Okay, there's a time for when they come home. There's fruits that they could eat if you want to make a healthy routine. There's fruits that are available, and then this time is supper. There's your own time. There's a time for homework, and then there is body zeit, taking a bath, and there's they're going to brush their teeth. So build in a routine for iskashos before they go to sleep. Is there time to build in, obviously kushing the mezuzah, to say psukim, to sing a niggin, to hear a story of the Rebbe? Many people show their child a picture of the Rebbe, it's a cushion. As if like Zayn and Rusland in the Alta Tag, they hid a picture, it shouldn't be caught to be a Shneyasansky. They pulled out a picture. Before the baby was a guy in Shlaf, and then it was Negea. It's Negea today the same way. And we have to take it out with the same Cheder HaKodesh. Everybody knows from Shimon HaKofer, there's a Rishim, if I remember correctly, and the Abeginom Neshamis, and was in Vilna, and then he went to the Alter Rebbe. He couldn't get it into the Chassidim, and when he went, one of the things he wrote back to Central was that as long as we have these mamas that wear an apron, and before they tell a story of the Rebbe, they wash their hands, and they wipe it, and then they say a story of the Rebbe. As long as they're doing that, we have no way to break in. So it's on us, but you have to build it in. Otherwise, just to rely on doing it off the cuff, besides, as I described a moment ago, the maila of routines in which things are predictable, it gives stability in the life of a child, in the life of adults also, mind you. But in addition, things don't fall to the wayside. What's important plays out. So if there's if it's a value, and it is a value, to prepare for Shabbos, and the kinder's on helfen, and the wife puts in the time that Thursday night the table should be ready, for example. It's these are things that may seem derech agav, they may seem kilachar yad, but they have a lasting impact l'doirei doiris. And therefore, the time you spend with your spouse to plan how we do things, it takes planning. But that planning is worth its weight in gold. Mamish in gold. So, here are examples. I'll share a personal story, okay, that I know gave me a tremendous value in Limud HaTorah. Made an impression on me. B'haraya, I remember the story. Over 40, and I remember this like yesterday, okay? So one day I came home from Cheder, must have been Kita Daled Hay, and by supper there was a cake on the table. So I asked my sister, what's it does? Like someone's birthday today? So she said, no. So my mother came to the table and she said, oh, in my class they had a siyum today. So we're celebrating. I remember it till today, okay? What does that take? It takes to come up with such an idea, it takes attentiveness. And you'll pick up, there's endless opportunities to boost the chinuch that's already going on. You're already paying schar limud, you sent them to Yiddishe Chinuch, to Yiddishe Chinuch, and today the Malamdim are dedicated above and beyond, be'emes, la'amitai, they put in yomim v'layla, and you have, nothing will replace when the child comes home if the parent takes interest. If the parent's face lights up when the child shares something, or he asks, "No, tell me what you learned in Cheder today." Many times they'll say, nothing. But if you know, they send a message home. This is what we're learning. We finished this. For you, that's gold. Now, by open house, I make sure to tell parents all the time, you don't need to be Bucky in the Mishnayos that the children are learning. The father doesn't need to, Kolshkin, the mother doesn't need to. You just need to hear certain phrases and explain me this. The child's not going to test you after he explains it to you. Do das nur wissen, what are the right questions to ask? When you ask a question, it's negea to you. And not negea as in, tell me. You cherish what he learns. You're like the cheering, crowd for what the Malamdim are putting in for what the child. So if you know there's a mitzvah going on now in Mishnayos Baal Peh in your school, or any contest, or any hachana for a special day, it's a golden platter, right? They already invested the time in talking to your son about it, and you just need to say, as a parent, you want to show your child that your weight is on it, that this pasha takes, and I'm telling you, like we said at the beginning, we could, without noticing, step on a whole bunch of a lot. A child brings home papers. I did this, I did that. It's one thing, do avens ta paroigin. Wow, tell me more, okay? And nobody demands a parent should be able to drop everything. Where Baruch Hashem, the parents are splintered between a million zachin. Yotzap itself is a full-time job, okay? So no one's asking you to, but the time that you give him, the arbainaim, the personal moment that you give the child, is boosting everything you invested in schar limud and what your child's malamdim and mechanchem are. So those, never let such an opportunity by. Here you have an opportunity. My mother knew there was a siyum. Why? Because they asked Mastama come with a white shirt. Or as another example, okay? The child's going to change clay there, right? And if you know he's going to have a new shirt, and you keep it for your Teskislev, okay? Wear a new shirt. When he comes home, there's a Weisse Tishtach, Licht. These are Minhagi Chsidim. And you change the atmosphere in the home. The home can be, imagine a child eats a fleishige Seudah in Cheder, and they sang Padu B'Shalom, and the Alter Rebbe's Nigin, mit den Nachana, with the Yezer Tichlab to getanzt, everything. Comes home, and the day feels like Gimel Cheshvan. Okay? So it's a stira, it's something. I'm not putting a guilt feeling on anybody, but for Keret, it's an opportunity to boost that pi kama v'kama when you know. Sometimes schools are very good, Heinz Tug, in keeping parents posted on what's going on which day, v'chulu v'chulu, and it's just being tremendously attentive, finding these opportunities, because our children are always looking at us. I'm going to share a few stories. I was discussing this with the Chaber. I'm trying not to repeat anything that was said in the last two series. There are great shiurim agav in the past we gave on hashkafa connected to the mitzvah, or on shalom bayis bechlal, or the Yisodis of Yiddishe home, basics in Yiddishe home, and the focus here is on chinuch. But it is intertwined a little bit, which means who you are. That's who the child really. He doesn't listen to what you say. He listens to what you do. You could talk from today until Hawaii about the importance of something. If you don't do it, it's not. He doesn't even hear the words. Nishpshat he hears and he passes. He doesn't even hear what you're saying. It's nishtamis. The mitzvah is nishtaza. It's not important, right? If it's important, then I would see you do it. Okay, so. And it's important to be emes with the child. It's very important. I'm not saying the child's not your mashpeh. A person should not be telling his child his chesroinus, but should be very honest with the child. And my koch and my inyan is this and this and this. I wish I was able to do maybe different. Maybe one day I'm going to get to a level I'll be able to dedicate more time to learning. When you're honest that way, a child could grow beyond his father and still be very comfortable. He doesn't see himself as greater, because everybody to different can. We expanded on this in the past. I'm not going to go to that, but on this nekuda about children cherish what they see their parents do. So I know for myself, I have this Cheder. I go to the boyer with my yarmulke. But in the mikveh in the morning, I go to the mikveh, I go with my yarmulke. I never spoke about this to any of my kids. I see my children, my boys, they'll go back and take the yarmulke and put it also near the bird. They put it on the towel, so they could walk back with their yarmulke. I was talking to Chaver. He told me he was looking. It's just a funny thing. He was looking at pictures of his son's Cheder party, and they're saying Shema. He's a lefty, so he says with his link hand, Zok Shema. His son is a righty, but he says Shema with his left hand because this is his tata does. There's my mother was telling me, he's a preschool teacher. And these are these stories that are important because they give you a window into a child's mind. We sometimes forget that kids are this small and they're looking up and what they see, So there was, there's every Friday a Shabbos Tati and a Shabbos Mami when you'll have kinder that age, in preschool. So every Shabbos, every Friday, there's Shabbos Tati. So there's a Seder. There's Mami Ben Shlicht and Tati macht Kiddush. So one week there's a girl that she's a Shabbos Tati in a girls' preschool, and she runs to the corner. She's waiting. So the Mora asks her, "Was?" I'm going to mikveh. My father, the Shabbos Tati gave mikveh. Okay? Now, you should know, I mentioned earlier, and I want to go back to this, that everything has to be said. Everything has to be heinz a tug. It's not like a mole that things are self-understood, but you have to find a creative way to express a mole. A chassid's connection with the Rebbe is libel apumale galia. It's very, very personal. But if you don't talk about the Rebbe, he doesn't hear Rebbe. Period. At the end of the day, that's what it is. So that's why I was saying, building in things that are important to you. Avodas atfila. So imagine a person is dedicated, davened a few hours late, and he comes home. From the whole family's perspective, the father's sitting in shul, kratzing his feet. They don't know what he's doing in shul. If you come by the Shabbos table and you share, by Chassidim is the Seder, I'm learning Chassidus, and I'm going to share a thought that I thought, even if it goes straight over their head, but they see where your juice is. So here's another. I'll give an example. My sister-in-law, my shver, is a grosser shliach, Rabbi Zaltzman from Toronto. So his daughters, at the beginning, when they were in Toronto, they learned in Beis Yaakov. There wasn't a Lubavitch Maisis yet. So the Mora asked the girls, "What does your tati do to help?" They all had to write on a paper. What does your tati do to help prepare for Shabbos? So if you know my shver, so she wrote on the paper, he puts on tefillin with Yidden. Every person wrote what the father shined the licht or whatever. You have to shear. You should know that we're in America. A lot of people are valued by what they do. What do you do? Is like almost as close and up there like what your name is, which is a terrible thing. Once upon a time in the shtetl, you have Tanaim. Right? You had Tanaim. There was a blecher and a Tanaim that are all avodas kapayim. It's an afkimina what he did to cover his back to pay the bills. He was a yid. Said Galant. He was a yid. Then afterwards, is what he did. And by us, it's important. It's a decision that has to be made. If you want a child, the money, the dollar shouldn't be a egel hazav. You have to put in time to think how you're going to go bavegen sich mit the kinder, right? So I personally never knew what my father does for a living. I didn't know. I knew he works with OK. I didn't know anything beyond that. But what I did know is he would say that he has a different route that he drives because there's a gas station that a yid arbeitet. He's going to go over there because then he gets to put on tefillin with him. That I did know. So what your children know says a lot about how you present yourself, okay? And these things are important. If you have a geschmack in something, make sure the mishpacha knows. Yiras Shamayim is if for red 20, what is it called? That thing that Ala Mamaskein does. That there's a certain food coloring which is a problem. Nish gesund, ja gesund. I'm not Bucky. You ask your wife; she knows. All of us. If that's nageya, the hechsher should be nageya. Now, it doesn't mean we don't live in a door that you have to passel for you to be a Yiddishe Shamayim. But this is what we for grape juice, we want, there should be azan azah hechsher. Good. Do we eat broccoli? How we eat? Was it checked? Now, you don't need to be, you don't have to build your chumras on other people. But you have to, by us, the ikr is not chumras, it's hidurim. Your mahada, you beautify a mitzvah, and it should be known. It should be known to your mishpacha when you do a mitzvah. I know it goes a little bit against the grain of Deir Hashishi, of Pnimius, that it was unblitis. The Rebbe clearly spoke not in this kav, in regards to mitzvah, lefarsim ma'aseh mitzvah, and you have to do things with a shtonim, and muz mefarsim zayin, we have in our mishpacha also, so Rabbi Yusewitz, the Rebbe pushed, you should be mefarsim anything you do. Why? The Rebbe says today, v'nishma koilo b'voyo l'kodesh, you have to do b'pirsum rav. And what this means in each one of our little life, that when you're doing something, if you want the kinder should know it, you have to let it be known. Then you have to share. You have a geschmack of their hair. So, let me go back to when I actually wrote down I was going to plan to cover, so I don't miss anything. Okay. So I know, it's a little, I know this may not be for the crowd right now here, but I'm going to share this because we have a broader audience. And Tzunitz Kumen. We were talking before about setting the atmosphere at home with Nigunim, with what we do. I'm going to share a story. I think I shared it in the past. Many times today, people are challenged with a child that doesn't, this is not up his alley. He doesn't want a ganzen azay. So first of all, don't lose it. What's a child asks his father, "Was is gay?" Father, Kitzer, he's ecking and becking until he said something, and the child says, "Okay, if that's true, was is tzalmav." Children are very emistic and they're very sincere and say zuchnish, and many times you could say something pashut that will. I'm just saying this is in general. Okay, this is a side nakuda. A parent once came to me. Maybe I called him because the boy came with a yarmulke that was not befitting. Okay, let's say it was a leather yarmulke. Okay, and the father said, "What should I do? He wants this yarmulke." So I said, "What to do now is a good question." Okay, what to do now? There's ways to go about it, Agav. And you have to be very sensitive, because if you dig your heels and he digs his heels, Heinz Tug, the world is very inviting, sadly, and supportive of other things. But what this reminds us of is, and I'll bring it from a different example. When you're walking down the street with your son and you say, "Psh, look at this Chassidische haircut. Look at this, you see this yarmulke? Psh, it's like the Rebbe's yarmulke. The Rebbe trug a zay yarmulke. It's kashrus. Oh, look at this tamim. Looks like a tzir of a tamim. You're looking in the clay there, whatever." Then that's the discussion. Certain things a child won't bring up. You understand? If from earlier on, the discussion about a yarmulke, you say, listen, a yarmulke is about Yare Malka, right? It's about Yiddishe Chinuch. You have to be able to have an honest conversation, b'chlal. But you're sharing earlier on, you say, b'chlal. That's why by us, I like it. By us is edel yarmulkes, not yarmulkes that call attention. Yarmulkes are meant to be for us. A child needs to look happy with what he's wearing. You wear Tzivus Hashem, you wear olive bays, you wear whatever you wear in yarmulke. But it's be edel. It's celebrating Yirei Malka. So then all certain things a child doesn't start thinking he's going to be embarrassed to bring up. Listen, I want a leather one. and you get the chance beforehand to set the context. That's what I'm saying. A haircut, a yarmulke, in what our koch is in. And the more you're more outspoken, the more... And not pshat, you're putting down and laying down more rules and more rules. That's not what it's about. Chas v'shalom, chalil b'chas. You don't want to be le'mehem le'ma'amaynom. But sharing and appreciating every nakud of darkei achsidim, v'achsidis, going to 770, the Rebbe Shul, you go to the Oyel, and you talk about the Rebbe, our Nasi, Miftzayim. The more you put that perspective, you say, we go to Manhattan. Why go to Manhattan? Go to Manhattan because, what do you mean? The Rebbe is shlichus. You have the schus to all the binyanim, the malachim, the angemacht. Kedei, we should be able to find Yidden. They come over here. V'chulu v'chulu. When you have the opportunity to frame things when the child is much younger, And however you do it, in whichever areas you choose to do it, you obviously set the stage that certain things are not part of the discussion. Now again, like I started off the shir, there's no guarantees. We have to daven, but you understand? And when you have these nekudas in mind to prevent and to set, it's not even prevention. Prevention is already around the problem. We're not frum because there's a problem. We're not saving Yiddishkeit. That's not how it works. If a child feels that his father is frum because there's a guilt feeling because the old style, the Moshe style music, like Zion, what's going to be with our children? That style, why should I be it? We have to share the reichkeit of the schus we have to be der Ashvi, to be the Rebbe's Chassidim, to be Yidden Bechlal, Chassidim Bechlal, Amma Nivchar. And the more you bring it into the pratim, the more it plays out in the pratim. Okay? I would share something that's connected a little bit to shluchim and shluchis, even though, just because I did get a lot of feedback, a lot of shluchim that join, maybe Cheder in Crown Heights, there's many Taharas Hamishpacha opportunities, many shluchim are with us. So I'm going to share, even though Bizman I took achlata, I'm going to talk, I just have a talk I once gave to shluchim on chinuch of children of shluchim, which is it's its own unique subject, and I said I'm not going to talk to anybody about the chinuch of the children until they hear that recording. And I'm ready to send it to anybody. But one of the main things is that the way you talk to your balabatim, and the way you're nizar and they're covered, and the way you plan, how to greet them and put in time and effort, you are by far your biggest supporters in the world of shluchis, and this is important for all of us that are shluchim, are your family, your wife and your children. Okay, on two accounts. The first is that at the end of the day, you bring people in. They want to see is it a life worth living, and their best example is how you handle your children and do your children appreciate it. That's firstly, but even more when you have a weak moment, they're there for you. Schwer, I'm saying they're there, and whatever you put in. At the end of the day, that's what is going to be with them. They're mamish. You're being mechanech children on an island. You have extra brachas from the Rabbi v'chulu, but to make the kelim, and I'm so proud. After one of the talks I gave for shluchim on this subject, a shliach sent to me. He pashit the next Chanukah, a ma'aseh shahoya. He sent me a clip, and he is from a family group. So there's a few brothers. They were they're shluchim in different places. One in Eretz, one outside of Eretz, another place. They were all showing what the father made an event. He chose one of his children is going to be the singer, and this kid went happy. And maybe he could have found a better name of a singer in the crowd. But at the end of the day, the kid felt part of the event, and the kid. You imagine you have a child. You're making an event. The tata gate their own meshuga, and then when the kid he says help, and then when the event itself comes, don't disturb me, go away. The kid, how is he supposed to enjoy the Hanukkah event? And I'm just giving this understanding. It's a very, very sensitive matzav, and it takes a lot of thought how to include a child. What are you going to do part of the event? Thank you so much. I remember there was a person driving from here to the Oyel, so he put a GPS in those days, for example, GPS. He put it in the back of his, here's the driver's seat. He put the GPS in the back of the driver's seat by his son, and his son zocked him, okay, now make a right. He turns around, thank you. I say, Shekayach, thank you so much. He makes a right. He knew the way, he was zicher by heart. And then the thing tells him, now make a left by this street. The kid tells him, now make a left. Shkoyach, thank you so much. It's the whole way to the oil. The kid had an opportunity to mamish feel like he's driving the car and his father's thanking him and he's part of this whole project. Take this as a dogma for everything in your life, if you have an opportunity to include your son in that he feels not only important, he feels you're not presenting Yiddishkeit to him, he's part of it. You're celebrating his part in it. He prepared for Shabbos, he shared something, that's the highlight of the Su'udah. And sometimes there are kids that are not running to share, okay? It's not stereotype. Take them to a store, let him choose what he likes to treat for Shabbos, and you say, oh, this we have in schus of him. Why? Because he had a siyum or a chavet Shabbos and he's going to share something. It takes planning, it takes creativity, it takes noticing. But this half an hour of chinuch is irreplaceable, and not only, as we said at the beginning, not only irreplaceable, it's indispensable, it's also, Pashut pays itself back, and it's worth its weight in gold. Yeah. Okay, there's another very important, and this really goes back to about how thoughtful we are, because the emes is, today's day and age, like we were mentioning, we're splintered. There's a lot going on. I'm saying that we are all multitasking. You should know, everybody's multitasking. You're in contact with so many more people. So many people can access you and pull your attention in different directions through your computer that you carry in your pocket with a filter. That it's the attention you're giving to any mitzvah, mind you. Even kolshkein to be attentive to a child that's talking childish, it takes work. And therefore, the avodah hamoichin, it takes in advance to stop and to notice and to think about how we do things. Our Zayder, Moshe Rubin, had as a very interesting hanhaga. We don't say l'shem yichud before mitzvahs that we do besides in the free, and v'yachan atzma, there's a Cheder Rebbe about before Itchkes. He used to say before many mitzvahs, before he put on tefillin, he said, Ich geh legen tefillin. Ich geh machen a bracha. Ich geh waschen the hand. To stop and to realize what's going on, what you're about to do, because the child taking it in is choimer bilti mitzuyer. The child is good, and this we have to maintain that perspective. Children don't mean bad. Children mamish mean good. They're pure. Sometimes they don't know how to express it, but what they're really seeing is those pair of eyes are looking at us, and therefore the more we're able to be focused and they're able to be available and present, that's an anchor for the child in his Yiddishkeit. So the avodas chinuch begins be'emes, stopping to think about ourselves. If I have a certain amount of money, what can I do to boost the chinuch of my children? Spend time by yourself, spend time with your wife. Being available in cup is even if for right now, he won't have what to do, you'll have to have some makeshift solution for your children. But for you, it's like the mask. When they say on the plane, if the plane starts going, if we lose oxygen, so they say first put on your own mask and then put on your child's mask. If you put on your mask, you're available to do whatever else comes properly. And therefore, be'emes, avodas hatfilah is part of our avodas chinuch. You owe it to yourself to stop and think, to learn, to be inspired yourself. Make a kviyas l'Torah. Make sure not just doing it kidei de kinder. No, live the emes to be, and it takes also being by a farbrengen. Being by a farbrengen is important. Being by a farbrengen, dibuk chaverim is important. Important to have chaverim. These inyanim are important not only because it's darkei chassidus, and darkei chassidim, and darkei chassidim brings bracha. It's because this will help you be inspired. And on them, it's very hard to give what you don't have. Very hard to give what you don't have. Okay. So another I was mentioning earlier, I see it written down. Chidon. Your child is learning for something. Take part in the celebration. It's not just a flight you send them off. If you're living in Chutzler, you're living in the city, he didn't, you say, you smile. Whatever you do boosts. I was reminded when I was thinking about this year. in the shtetl, okay, this is also Rabbi Moshe my Zayder, Rabbi Moshe his mother used to send him in White Russia to learn in Cheder, so she would give him it was freezing cold, she would give him 2 hot potatoes in his hands, so he would be warm until Cheder, and he would also be able to have a snack, okay? It seems like it was a commodity. I'm saying it was, and it takes time to prepare. But when you go to school, when you go to Cheder in such a way, you start off, so what do we send our children off to Cheder with? And what is the morning routine? Let's say those that are just married. Okay, how do we start our day? Sometimes, today's day and age, a kid gets up, there's a bus coming, you hast nicht Zeit, we need to go, come, let's go, let's get out, just get dressed already, and is already stressed right at the beginning. It's very hard, so sometimes it starts the night before. But remembering these nekudas, that the way you send them, you prepare, sometimes the Rebbetzin does this, your wife does this, to have what's a special snack that he can take together with him, he should feel put together. Does he have proper clothes? You fold the clothes. It's not always so easy. Life is not picture perfect. But the more you invest, the more you'll take out. I'm going to share a vart on the parsha, and I think we'll share a vart on the parsha that's negea to this. To taking Yiddishkeit personal, and this is about ourselves, but about our children. That we know that we know that the Moshe Rabbeinu davened that Yeshua Ko Yeshua Chamatzis B'Raglim. He added a yud to the name of Yeshua. They called Heshea Benun Yeshua. Why the yud? Ko Yeshua. But from wo stammt the yud? So Chazal tell us this yud comes from Sarai. They should change their name, just like Avram to Avraham, Sarai to Sarah. What's the significance of this change? Similar to Avram, just like Avram Lechatchil was Avram, he was removed, but he was his own derech, and then he became Av Hamoin Goyim. Similarly, Sarai Lechatchil was her own sar, means more limited. The Sar, but she was Sarai to Avram, to the Eibishter. And then she became Sarah. So then, if so, what's the significance of this Yud, which is limiting to Yeshua? That Moshe Rabbeinu added it to Yeshua. So the Vart says that Moshe Rabbeinu sends Yeshua to Eretz Yisrael. He says, I don't want you to think you're going on a global mission, and you're going to save Alaman, and you're going to think to ratav the whole world. It's your personal inyan. The Yud is like Sarai, it's your inyan. And the same applies to each one of us. You have to fight for your home. At the end of the day, your daladamis, your karmi shali is your primary shlichus. The Rebbe said this to, if I'm not mistaken, this was to Gorelik when they went out. The Rebbe was to Rabbi Mendel and his Rebbetzin. The Rebbe was going through all the specific things. The Rebbe was giving them brachas right before they left. All the specific things the Rebbe wanted them to invest face. And the Rebbe was going through either, I don't know, it was hafotza, and there was intermarriage and kol minei zachen. And then the Rebbe said, "Be'ikar kol ha'ikrim." They didn't know what was going to be Iker Kol Ikrim. The Rebbe feared there's Chassidische Nachas from the Kinder. If that's Iker Kol Ikrim, you just stay here. No. We have a shlichus to do in life. But together with that, you have to know that Iker Kol Ikrim is, you have to fight for your personal daldamis. It's your Beis Chabad. It's your, even on shlichus, and on shlichus asach mer, in a much greater measure. This has to be your safe haven, where you're able to, not only able to express freely, where you control the temperature, what we're excited about, and what we marvel, what we cherish, what we invest in, you put energy into, and what gets you going. And that's a yisoid. That's the yud of Yeshua. It's your inyan. It's your Eretz Yisrael, and we have to look at it that way. Never give up. Never. the world, the shlichus we do outside of our home are great. They never replace the responsibility that we have and the shturim that we need to create in our safe haven. This is our tevas noyach that we decide, and the more you put in, the more they're available. That means your wife, Angel. I'm saying in last series, we discussed a lot more. It's found. You can find it on the website, taharashabayis.org/shiurim. Chlal, good resource. All the past shiurim in Taharas Hamishpacha review. But over there, we discussed on shalom bayis in this regard as well. I'm going to finish with one nakuda. The last nakuda is also super important, which is the following. We know about Avshalom, about Avshalom, that rebelled against David HaMelech. The Navi describes him, and describes in detail, that in passing, but in detail, so sensitive, and it's truth that you have to, it says, Yetzer Katan Be'isha, so Yamin Mekareves and Small Deiche. You have to have Yamin Mekareves. You can't let it go, all the way. But you want to be able to say, Oy, how do I help you? Some people step in to save their son. He shouldn't have to work. At the end of the day, our children have to feel cause and effect. They have to appreciate real life. You can only appreciate hatzlacha if they had a chance to appreciate that, look, it doesn't go on the first time. I had my son, one of my sons was working on something and it wasn't going. And he said, you're doing this, and he said to me, do tustaseh, you're doing this and you're doing that, and you're being matzliach. I'm trying. I said, listen, everybody only knows about the projects that I started and I was matzliach. What I started and I was matzliach, anybody knows about? Nobody knows about that. I didn't finish them. I didn't go. You understand? And a child has to know. You have to know that not everything happens automatically. Not everything you'll step in to cover for him. And then you obviously will support. That's our job. We're a cheerleader. We're there to help them. And also when they're doing great. When they're doing great and they're being matzliach, that's amazing. It's amazing. You want to share with him, how does it feel? I'm telling you, if I was in your place, this reminds me, the Rebbe answered for such a zach, there was such a story, the Rebbe answered as you want to let him experience it. And you want to help him experience it b'miluah, whether it's like we said earlier, celebrating. So that's the final nakuda I would leave you off with. A Menachem that's kedai to read, which is also fascinating stuff. And in regard to sometimes putting the emes the way it is, there's a beautiful Cheder that the Rebbe gave out in Kuntres Chav Beis Shvat Tashnon Aleph, the pink booklet, Nun Beis. And the Rebbe put in there a sikh of the Friedrich Rebbe with the Trumas HaMishkan. That the women it's really a sikh for women, but the Friedrich Rebbe goes through this Tabas, Kumas, Chach, Menachem, and the Friedrich Rebbe says how they need to be attentive to hear who their children's friends are, what are they talking about. Not that you're micromanaging, just with wisdom, steering their conversations. Chachmas Nashim Bansa Beisa, it takes a lot of being attentive. And it's avoida on us, sikha that's worth learning. Over there also he says there has to be gvura in chinuch. Like we all know, there's trein gadfin, there's chesed and gvura. A bird doesn't fly only with chesed. There has to be also discipline. And discipline doesn't mean, it means firmness. It means this is the Seder, this is how we do things. You can't choke them, chas v'shalom, but setting routines, setting things and boundaries in place that prevents certain things, that gives the child stability. When a parent is ready, that my child, everything I let him and I tell and I listen to him and he decides what he likes, at the end of the day, the base was vax from them. Couch potatoes, people that can't get out of bed, because everything's an option. Maybe like this, maybe like that. Kabbalah soil is the yisoid of everything. When you get, and the way to give children this Kabbalah soil is by having gvura as well. Doesn't have to be chas v'shalom, raising voice. Doesn't have to be hitting. It has to do with, this is the Seder, having boundaries, as we all know. And actually, I just remind myself, I'll finish with a Maisa. My mother shared this with me. She worked in preschool for a long time. She shared that there was once a Mora that was describing, I just remind myself from the Sikha of the Friedrich Rebbe, there was once a Mora describing to the girls how the women, when they were building the Mishkan, each one took their jewelry and brought it to the Mishkan. You know, there's such a thing happened, Mamish Nun Beis, Truman Nun Beis. A whole group of women from Toronto sent a box of jewelry. The Rebbe made a reference, and the Rebbe was Makabel. The Rebbe didn't even send it to the library. If I'm not mistaken, it's still in the Rebbe's room. So huge chiddush, because it's, I think it even may even have halachic ramifications in terms of them giving it for I don't know exactly what their kavanah was, but so this Mora was saying, she took a few of her jewelry and she put it on the table. She said they brought she was just like props. She was showing a bracelet, and they took their earrings and they brought it for the Mishkan. So one of the girls in the circle was wearing a necklace, so she got up. She thought this was, and she came over to the table and she put down her necklace also. So when we're sincere, and when we're meinen mit an emes, and then Eliyahu Navi kommt. When we put in the time, we make the kelim, the iris are there. These children are children, very, very special children, the children of Yimaisa Mashiach. They're very, very sensitive, super, super sensitive. And the Rebbe actually looks at democracy, and the Rebbe made reference, if I remember correctly, very powerful word, but the Rebbe says it's part of a nibu b'nechem. Everything is an option. They could think otherwise, and they have a mind of their own. It's not like a mol. A kid is a shefel, a mezaktu metut. But it really comes from a very, very special place that these children are going to be Mekabel Pnei Mashiach Tzidkenu, and they b'nibu b'nechem b'neseichem. They already will have they have their own independence, and they'll be able to be menabeh. So l'chaim, we should have atzlacha with these children that hemikiru tchila. They have there's many nekudas that in technology they're hemikiru tchila definitely, but in so many other things as well. They're kalim, and we have to key in to what the Gilui Lakos already exists in our world today, that we can help them experience Gatlichkeit and lead us to the Geula with the Rebbe Bereshenu now. Shkoyach. Next week, Be'ez Hashem, not next week is all for Gimel Tammuz. The week afterwards, I think it's Tes Tammuz, is going to be